Now we're going to go back to, of course, those tragic events that we've been hearing about really for almost a week now here on France 24. We'll have a look at the international newspapers, how they're reflecting it. Emma James is here. It seems everyone praising, really, France's defiance in the face of tragedy, Emma.
Yes, absolutely. Starting with the Daily Telegraph, and that's, of course, a UK newspaper, they have a fabulously emotive shot of demonstrators standing on the monument at the centre of the Place de la République, and the imagery really bringing to mind images of the French Revolution. Of course, the statue itself is of Marianne, the symbol of that revolution. Inside the paper, there are images of all 17 of the victims of last week's terror attacks, but the accompanying article says there could so easily have been another fatality. A jogger was shot in Fontenay-aux-Roses on Wednesday, the day of the Charlie Hebdo terror attacks, the massacre there. And Fontenay-aux-Roses is the suburb southwest of Paris where Amdi Coulibaly lived. He was the man, of course, behind the murders inside the kosher supermarket in Paris on Friday. The victim is currently in a coma and his condition has been described as life-threatening.
No, sorry, carry on.
Taking a look at The Guardian talks about a nation united against terror and carries a rather touching image of the German Chancellor Angela Merkel alongside the French President. The article says not only France but Europe needs to overcome barbarism as well as xenophobia. Inside the paper, it quotes François Hollande. Today, Paris is the capital of the world, and shows that heads of state marching as they made their way through Paris. But it's the attendance of some of those heads of state that really seems to have been the only bone of contention with Sunday's events. The paper and many people on the streets pointing out that some of those dignitaries invited don't have a good record when it comes to freedom of speech or indeed freedom of the press. Many were asking why there were ministers from Egypt and Turkey, both countries that have been staging crackdowns on journalists recently. The Independent features another stunning photograph on its front page, the subheading, "The Day Paris Came Together in Defiance of Terror and Celebration of Freedom." Inside, the paper looks at the so-called martyrdom video filmed by Amdi Coulibaly and posted online yesterday. It's part of what's being seen as a propaganda war between Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State organisation. The Kouachi brothers, of course, said that they were working for Al-Qaeda in Yemen. But in the video, Coulibaly describes himself as a soldier of the caliphate.
Now, looking at those pictures of all those world leaders, of course, the obvious admission really is Barack Obama, isn't it? What's being said stateside about that, Emma?
Well, in the Wall Street Journal, there's no mention of the absent US president, but a very familiar-looking front page, many of the photographs today looking very, very similar indeed. Inside the paper looks at how the Jewish community here in France is growing more fearful. 4 hostages, of course, died inside the kosher supermarket on Friday, and that appeared to have been singled out by Amdi Coulibaly as his chosen target. The Israeli Prime Minister has given an open invitation to all French Jews to seek refuge in Israel, saying it isn't just the place to turn to in prayer, but it's also the home of any Jew. And staying with matters Israeli, Haaretz claims that the French president had asked Benjamin Netanyahu to stay away from yesterday's march. The paper claims it was a bid to keep any Israeli-Palestinian tensions out of the show of unity.
Now, some reported chinks in the solidarity armour there anyway, but away from that diplomacy, there have been some revenge attacks, the latest happening in Germany. In fact, we were reporting that this time yesterday on the programme, in fact.
Yes, there was an arson attack on the offices of the Hamburger Morgenpost. This came after they reprinted some Charlie Hebdo covers, and this is their front page today. Wir bleiben Mopo, which is a bit of a nod to Je suis Charlie. They're basically saying we're still Mopo, which is their nickname. And they said they were shocked to have been targeted because they believed that Hamburg was a very cosmopolitan town, and they found it shocking that they were targeted in that way. Now, inside the newspaper, it declares the world is Charlie and features some of the best images from the Republican March, including the embrace between the French president and Patrick Pelloux at the bottom of the page there. You can just about make it out. He was a doctor and a columnist for Charlie Hebdo, and he was among the first on the scene after the massacre. And undoubtedly, that embrace was one of the most touching moments there of an incredible day here in Paris.
Yeah, of course, lots and lots of touching moments that we brought you, of course, over the last 24 hours or so here on France 24. Emma, thanks very much. Emma James with the international papers.